welcome to What's the 411, and this is one of our specials, the Industry Insider. We're so excited. We've got an amazing guest here tonight, and I can't be any more interested in talking to them about their successes in their careers and giving you guys some information that you probably haven't heard already. We're talking to Miss Gilda Squire of Squire Media and Management, and needless to say, she's the manager for Misty Copeland. And we've also got her benefactor at the American Ballet Theater, Valentino Carlotti, who's also a partner at Goldman Sachs. He's head of the division for institutional clients. I'm so glad you guys are here. It's so exciting. There's so much going on, you could say, with Misty. But before we get to that, with regards to what you guys have done in your careers, your resumes obviously are outstanding. We're trying to get some information about what's been successful for you and how you've moved along. I got to start with you, Gilda, only because, as we kind of talked before, you started really early, at 16, and then working for the FBI. Just give us a little bit of history on that.
My mom had just died the year before, and my father did not have the money to send me to college. And I actually was not completely honest with you. I remember this a long time ago, obviously.
Right.
Virginia Union University offered me a full scholarship.
Oh, wow.
And in Richmond, Virginia, which is not far from where I grew up. And I decided that I wanted to go to George Mason University. That was my dream school.
Right.
I didn't have enough money to go, so I started looking for a job. And I started working at the Federal Bureau of Investigation at 16.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yes.
I mean, and
Pretty
so,
cool.
Yeah, and I mean, having an experience like that, was that what influenced you to stay in kind of the government realm when you moved on eventually?
You know, I grew up in a very small, rural, partly Baltimore, and then my parents decided to build a house in Virginia, and it was culture shock,
right.
Where it was nothing but woods, and just that was about it. And that's what people did.
Mm.
You know, you either worked locally at some retail outfit or restaurant, or you went to work for the government. So I went to work for the government. It was great. I mean, you know, to have a top secret clearance at 18,
wow.
it's kind of...
that's a good story to tell.
Yeah, I didn't really appreciate the experience until many years later.
Later on.
Yes.
I got to ask, Valentino, with regards to coming into the securities industry, was that always a goal for you? Was that something that you would...
Not really, actually. I figured out that I would work on Wall Street kind of in my junior, senior year in college.
Okay.
Up until then, I had been on the science and math track. In fact, I was pre-med and going to be a doctor.
Okay.
In high school, I was going to be an astrophysicist. But as I progressed through college and started to explore careers, in my junior/senior year, I discovered a place of finance on Wall Street that really intrigued me, so I started to get really focused on researching it, and then I interviewed for jobs in my senior year at college and landed a couple on Wall Street.
Excellent. Well, I mean, this is a first. I got to tell my audience, because they've never done an interview together. They've known each other for years. We're breaking news here at What's the 411, so we're really excited about that. Tell us about this, you know, because Goldman Sachs seems to be the nexus for so many, obviously, positive and successful folks. Did you guys meet at Goldman?
We did.
Okay, so let's start with
Goldman for me was a really welcome shock, surprise. When I first moved to New York after graduating from George Mason University eventually, I was in my early 20s, and I wanted to work in entertainment PR until I got some offers and I realized I couldn't really live on my own with what I was going to be making. So a headhunter sent me to Goldman Sachs. And Goldman Sachs hired me at the time in the investment banking division as an executive assistant. And at the time, I was really, I didn't think I'd made the right decision, because, you know, you think you move to New York, you have this dream, and you think, I'm going to live this dream, and then you're not.
Right.
And, you know, it was this amazing, miraculous professional detour that I didn't expect to lay the foundation for the rest of my career, and it certainly did. And I met amazing people like Valentino.
Right. Well, and now, did you go through some other shops before you got to Goldman?
No. Well, so I came to Goldman out of business school, and Gilda and I met when I was a young associate. Actually, I think maybe I was a vice president.
You were a vice president.
Was I vice president? But as Gilda mentioned, I think the great part about the place is that we just try to hire good people, with good talents, with good potential, and give them a platform, give them encouragement, give them resources. And as Gilda mentioned, she calls it a detour, but I think, you know, for all of us, the breadth of what we learn there, the approach we learn there, the ethic that we learn there, I think is really fungible anywhere we go. So I'm not surprised that Gilda while she's not doing finance anymore or working in a financial services corporation anymore, performs in the way that I know she does. And I'm sure we'll have a chance to talk about our working relationship. But I think for both of us, Goldman Sachs has been that, a training ground,
Sure.
a place to develop our skills and to try to do with them at Goldman or other places, but also outside of work as well. So,
Well, Gilda, you had an impact on Goldman even after you left because you started the diversity program there, and that's otherworldly. That's amazing. I mean, where did that come about? How did that come to fruition?
The long story short is that when I was working in corporate communications in the brand marketing group, we would routinely get these one-off advertising requests from Black Enterprise, the Network Journal, Essence Magazine, Hispanic Magazine, and we didn't have advertising that we felt was adequately speaking to the various populations because we were clear that we needed to communicate to various groups of people, not just a uniform set of people. So in the development of the global marketing campaign, I suggested that we come up with a more organized effort to deal with these requests and make it more of a program. So the diversity marketing program was born. I just kind of looked at what IBM was doing, American Express, so both Goldman's competitors and their non-competitors to see what they were doing in that space. And that's how it was born.
That's incredible. I mean, I know you guys, we talked about this a little bit before, you guys strategize all the time, obviously now that you have these more mutual interests. How did that develop in terms of, from your business life, now you're strategizing all the time for Misty and...
Well, I guess if the way, I think the quickest way to answer it is, frankly, when I got back in touch with Gilda, it was just like clicking back with an old friend, who, I knew where she was coming from, she knew where I was coming from, and literally, I think we got together 2 weeks after. Was it within 2 weeks?
2 weeks, yeah.
And we just ran into each other. Actually, Misty was doing a talk at an Apple store, and I was there in attendance listening to her, and I saw Gilda on the side, and so I just waited until I wasn't going to interrupt while the talk was going on, but went to Gilda and just said hi again, and kind of old friends just reconnecting.
Sure.
And we talked, and I said, and I knew what she was up to, and I said, hey, if I could be helpful. So Gilda, as she is well trained in doing, followed up immediately.
Right.
But when we got together, really, it's kind of like, again, were finishing each other's sentences in both of what we were thinking and how we wanted to help Misty. She had, of course, already been involved deeply with Misty as her manager, but I was excited to kind of hook up with an old friend and really think about how we could help Misty.
Right. Well, that's the most amazing part of this because obviously everybody's going to be interested in hearing about the development with Misty, and this is the team that is soaring her to new heights. You started your management part of your business, media relations you had been doing, and you saw Misty or came in contact. How did that come together?
I was very simply, we were at a party, not Misty, I was at a party one New Year's Eve, and the people in attendance were talking about the Prince concert, and they were talking about this African-American ballerina who danced atop his piano on point. And, we all started talking about it, and I said, oh, really? Is she with Dance Theater of Harlem? And they said, no, she's with American Ballet Theater. And the host of the party happened to know her, and he started talking about her actual background, that she didn't have what you would think is the typical background for a ballerina. In terms of, her upbringing and her economic status. And, she didn't come from money. She didn't come from an environment that fostered, studying ballet. And so I did my research that next day. I researched and read as much as I could about her, which there wasn't a lot. And because she wasn't that known outside of the ballet world. And I just thought at that moment, I've got to get in touch with her, and if she's interested, I want to see if I can get her story known. I want, as much as people think about Rihanna and they know about what Beyonce ate for breakfast and, how much she's rehearsed and all of these other pop stars, I thought, wouldn't it be great for little girls everywhere, black girls, white girls, Latinos, Asians, to know about her story, her journey, and be inspired by that.
That's so cool. I know, Valentino, you played sports in high school. I don't know, in college as well.
Yes.
So, and I've heard you talk about the relationship between athletes and highly trained athletes, which Misty is, and the business world. Just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get into just the demands that are part and parcel about being a ballerina, which is really off the charts in terms of what they have to do and how the rigor that's required. Yeah, there's certainly an ethic I think you learn in sports. And I was growing up, played all sports, but in high school and in college I played varsity basketball for 4 years. And I played at a Division I school. It's an Ivy League school, so it wasn't big time basketball, but it's the Division I school, and certainly the rigors and the demand and the time schedule was pretty tight. But we practiced 2 to 3 to 4 hours a day, 6 days a week, and of course at an Ivy League school you got to keep your grades up and make sure you do well in school. But the things you learn, the preparation, the discipline, the consistency, the stamina, the mental toughness you have to have. The physical toughness you have to have, the preparedness that you have to have, all of those things I noticed in Misty.
Sure.
But again, I do think she's doing it on a different level. Yeah. Obviously there's pro athletes, but there's a specific kind of athleticism I think that ballerinas have in the art form of ballet that you have to have, because aside from having all of that physicality, you've got to do it gracefully.
Yes.
You've got to do it with precision. There's technique involved, of course. There's acting involved. So it's a whole broader thing, of course. And I don't think people realize the amount of preparation that's needed daily and the push to try to get enough recovery time. Because, as an athlete, of course, as you prepare daily or weekly or monthly, it's important to get that recovery time. Well, with a ballerina schedule, or what it takes to perform at that level in a ballet company, you have to be very, very disciplined to get the appropriate recovery time to be able to be that consistent and have the stamina to have a long career.
No question. I gotta.
All of that, by the way,
yes.
all of that, by the way, is the same kinds of things needed, I think, to achieve success in the corporate world.
In the financial, sure.
You have a good day. Well, you got to come back tomorrow, do it over again, and do it over a year. At a level of excellence, year in, year out. You deal with clients who expect the best from you all the time. They don't.
Sure.
We all have off days,
right.
but you can't have too many of those. And so there's lessons in what I knew Misty had to have to perform at the level she was performing, that I knew that one I wanted to tap into and talk about in my own experience. But I also knew that in my experience there were learnings that I had that might be helpful to her if we got together and talked.
Fabulous.
A funny anecdote.
Please.
Stephen Curry,
Yeah.
the NBA player, MVP,
Favorite guy, yes.
told Misty when she told him what her schedule was day to day.
Okay.
He said, "I don't work as hard as you."
I believe that.
So that made her feel really good.
This is a perfect transition, perfect segue, because you plucked this idea for the Under Armour connection, which is just amazing. In the sense that I don't think a lot of people had seen, ballerinas or people in the arts world in that way, and it's blown up. It's over 10 million or plus views now. I'm sure 11 million somewhere about that. But what was the thought behind that? Because I know you kind of was proactive in pursuing that.
Well, Glenn, I went through her injury with her.
Right.
I was there day to day when she called me one day and said, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to perform because I'm in that much pain.
Sure.
And when I saw her that day, her leg was so red in the part where it was injured on her shin. It was so red and swollen that it was scary. And she somehow got out there and she performed Firebird, which is incredibly, ballet is incredibly physically demanding, as Valentino was saying, but that's a really, I think you would agree, and especially physically demanding role. In addition to that, it requires a lot of jumping. I remember when she performed Firebird, I was sitting in the audience, as was Val, and every time she jumped, I literally just froze in my seat. But she danced like she would never dance again, to the point where I remember getting chills and thinking, well, wait, maybe she took something. Maybe she's not, maybe she kind of moved through it. Maybe it was more psychological because she danced like her life depended on it. And I'm not exaggerating.
Sure.
But after, I remember taking some pictures backstage because there was a huge celebration for both Kevin McKenzie, the artistic director, his 20th year anniversary with ABT as the artistic director. And there were a bunch of us backstage. I took a picture, and there's a picture that I still have that I don't really show that often, but she is leaning to one side.
Wow.
And I didn't recognize that same night until the next day when I looked at the pictures, and she's taking her weight off of that leg. And it turned out that she had 6 stress fractures, a couple of them almost completely broken through the bone. And it turns out that this is an injury that a lot of athletes, professional athletes, get. It's from the wear and the tear. And everyone thought her career was over. Everyone. You know, the doctor who worked with ABT, he said, you know, this is it. You've got to have this surgery, but you're done. And she found one doctor who said, no, I can fix this. I work with New York Knicks players and professional athletes. Sure. I can fix this. You will dance again. Wow. And so going through that process with her, where she's from day to day saying, I know I had this surgery. I know he's telling me, the doctor's telling me I'm going to be okay. I'm not really convinced I'm going to be okay. Can I jump again? Can I go on point again? You know, those are literally the day-to-day questions that she had for months. Mm-hmm. And I thought, why wouldn't, an Under Armour be interested in her?
Sure.
I mean, it just seemed like a natural fit. I didn't know if they would agree with me. Mm-hmm. But in my mind, from a brand standpoint, and the experience I got at Goldman, it taught me that, that was a great partnership. That would be a great fit. And thankfully, they agreed.
Needless to say, Nike and Adidas and everybody else is upset that you made that plunge. But you talked about your interest in dance. You always had this tangential.
Yeah, well, my niece was a dancer, and from really 3-4 years old, she was interested in dancing. As her uncle, I was involved in supporting her and helping her, as of course was her mother, my sister. So that's one kind of, I actually say that's one sentimental attachment I always have with me. But in my family, my parents were the kind of parents that really just encouraged us to be involved in a whole swath of different activities. We were encouraged to kind of just be well-rounded and rounded people, and so, as I mentioned before, I had a particular interest in science and math, but we were encouraged to, know literature, history, culture, arts, music, dance. It was just part of our family upbringing, and that's the thing. We did those things together as a family, and any weekend we would have some music playing, and of course you could watch out if we're going to break into a dance with each other. But dance in general was something that's always been a part of my family's life. But I have to say, I have this sentimental thing that I have with my niece that just spurred me to, broader forms of dance. And then also she's trained, she's a certified instructor, but I started to get into also classical ballet. And there's a different, I go to a ton of different dance performances, and it's just a different genre and a different technique, and obviously a different line with classical ballet that I really find appealing. That's really beautiful to me.
Yes.
And to have it also come in the form of someone like Misty Copeland, a black woman playing at that level, was for me just a eureka moment, actually. In fact, it's why I went to the Apple store to hear Misty speak at night. I just felt, I know this must be a special woman, and I want to hear her story. I had seen her dance before, but I had never met her before, and so I wanted to just hear her speak to kind of get a sense of her motivation and who she was as a person. And of course, as we all are now seeing, the world is seeing, she's a special person.
Well, I'm glad you talked about family a little bit, because I want to give some quick personal information. Not too much, but I did want to have a chance for the audience to find out where you're from originally. I know you talked about the Virginia area.
Well, Baltimore for the first
okay.
half of my childhood, and then around 12 I moved to Virginia.
Okay. And family still there, or?
My family is spread out all over. Believe it or not, most of my family, they're New Yorkers.
Okay. Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
New Yorkers and Virginians and North Carolinians.
That's great. No, good stuff. Valentino?
Born and bred right here in New York City, in Manhattan.
Sure.
Went to elementary school and junior high school and high school here in the city before going off to college and business school. But I love New York. I'm crazy about New York and the history of New York, and
no doubt.
It's been great to grow up here and live here.
George Mason University,
GMU, Patriots.
Okay. And I know Yale first.
Yale University for college and,
right.
and Harvard,
And Harvard
Harvard Business School for my MBA.
Fabulous. I mean, there's so much resume to go through. We're not going to do all that. You can find a story. We're going to have it up on our website. But I do want to find out, with this marriage, I know you were brought into the ABT by one of your former, or a colleague, I guess, an association there. Just tell us quickly about how you got to...
well, again, I had met Misty before I joined the board. And
Okay.
we got together. We had, I think, our first strategizing session, maybe one or two strategizing sessions before I actually joined the board of ABT. But a colleague, a board member on the ABT board, also happened to be a fellow board member of mine on another board, and she knew of my interest in dance, and we got to talking, and she said, would you be interested in, joining the ABT board? And actually, one, yes, because I love dance, I love classical ballet, but also Misty was there, and I saw it as also a way to be able to help not only Misty but the other dancers and be a part of the fabric of the place. So that's how she recommended me. And then you go through the process of meeting people.
Excellent. I mean, and for you not only represent Misty, but Sarah Myers.
I
Mears,
worked
I'm sorry.
with Sarah Mearns.
Sarah Mearns,
That was
right,
another
right,
management
right.
client, yeah.
And that was
which
New York
good.
City Ballet.
Yes.
For her. And the
I
endorsement
sort of
deals,
found
yeah.
myself, it cast into this world of ballet. I'm not really sure how it happened, other than working with Misty, because I'd never worked with a dancer before.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden I found myself working with Misty and Dance Theater of Harlem and just being fully immersed. I mean, now I can look at a picture and say, oh, that's from Le Bayadere, or, that variation. I feel like I'm part of the family.
Well, I mean, for other information, excuse me, Gwavenzine Wallace, did I say that right? Gwavenzine, I've been blowing that.
Beast of the Southern Wild.
Beast of the Southern Wild, unbelievable performance. I mean, just kind of launched her onto the stage. I mean, had you worked with other actors before her?
Yes, I've done media training as part of my business.
Sure.
And when I got the call from Cassandra Butcher, who's a senior VP of publicity at Fox Searchlight, and she said, I have a bit of a different opportunity for you. And I said, oh, sure, bring it on, And she said, she's 8. And I said, how do you media train an 8-year-old who was not destined for Hollywood?
Sure.
This kid came from a normal background in Louisiana. I think it was Homer, Louisiana, and just decided, oh, that sounds like fun. Let me go audition for this movie, this independent film, films it, and next thing you know, she's going off to Cannes.
Amazing.
As the star of a film. So yeah, it was interesting. I flew to Louisiana and I media trained her over the course of 3 days, and look at her now.
Amazing stuff. Well, we've got to talk about what's helped be, I guess, part of your toolkit. I know you were in the publishing industry for a while. Any books that you might recommend that somebody might be able to use in their personal life in terms of helping their career along? Or
I have to be honest,
Yeah.
I'm not a self-help kind
Okay.
of
I hear you.
but
I understand.
I will say, ironically, books have been a huge part of my professional journey. And when I first started at Goldman, I felt like such a fish out of water because I never imagined myself on Wall Street. I knew nothing about it. I never even so much as took a finance class in college. And so I felt like, I've got to immerse myself in this world. I've got to understand what this is all about, because I've never been that person who can kind of sit back and coast.
Okay.
And so I read Reginald Lewis's Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun?
Right.
And I believe you were the one who told me to read that, Val. I don't know if you remember that. Because I think I was having a conversation, Rhonda and I, who is his former assistant, and I were having a conversation. I just said, I feel like I don't know what's going on, what's happening. And you suggested that I read. Did you remember that?
You talking about back at Goldman?
Yes, in
I don't remember.
whatever.
I certainly could have told her to read it recently, because we were doing a lot with the Lewis family,
Sure.
And stuff like that.
No,
and
but
he's
it was
always
even
on our
back
mind.
then. It was even back then, and it was really helpful to me to just sort of understand. I love reading memoirs.
Yes.
So I recommend stories like The Pursuit of Happiness by Chris Gardner.
Okay.
Stories that are inspirational, that are motivational. That's what I recommend.
Valentina?
I guess I'm gonna forget the author, but a book that I actually have read several times called Stress for Success.
Okay.
And I think it's Jim Lehr or Tim Lehr, Loehr. I think is the author's name. I might be wrong on it, but the whole you asked kind of what kind of as a template for how you might have high achievement. And the whole premise of the book actually is something that we talked about already. The concept of, we all think of stress as being something bad, and you want to avoid stress, but it kind of turns the word on its head in the book and educates that, well, no, as humans, our development comes because we have stress. We stressors, and it's a reaction to, I think a better word for it is kind of pushing yourself beyond where you are, and developing and growing. And so it talks about having the appropriate and the right kinds of stress, the right kind of motivators. And then the whole book is just kind of full of things about preparation, recovery, the rigor, consistency, all of the things that we talked about a little bit, that I'm really a student of and try to really admire in people who operate at a high level of performance and exhibit excellence. So it's one of the books that I always have kind of playing in my head. Again, back to that book also is one that talks about the quote-unquote corporate athlete, and what you have to do every day as a quote-unquote corporate athlete, and how do you do it for long periods of time. So that would be one I recommend. A book that piqued my interest called The Achievement Habit. It's I think it's by a Stanford professor, dean of engineering dean at Stanford, and again it talks about how your mindset, how learning a way of doing things, a way of thinking is so important in what you're able to achieve, and how if you can get that right, the possibilities are really endless. Well,
at What's the 411, our executive producer and founder, Ruth Morrison, is always encouraged books, and we have a book content editor that brings us fabulous authors and books, and so it's so great. I know that publishing background is something that was really intriguing for us, and I mean there's so much. You guys are gonna have to come back and do this again, but I do want to ask you a couple of quick things about technology, just in terms of, I mean, do you utilize it? Is there something that you can't live without? What do you use in your daily kind of? I know the phone is always close by, but
my tablet, my cell phone, my computer. I have hard drives, portable hard drives. I mean, you name it. And the funny thing is, when I worked on Capitol Hill, this is going back to 1990. When I worked on Capitol Hill, that was my job after the FBI. Dr. Jack Gibbons, who unfortunately he recently passed, he was the head of the office and my boss, and he was the one who encouraged me to go back to college. And I remember him telling us, I mean, part of what Office of Technology Assessment did was they reported to Congress on the merits, the pros and cons of technology and science, and where it was going to be in 25 years. And so I remember they talked about this HD TV. That they did so many reports on HD TV, and I remember Dr. Gibbons saying people don't understand that this information superhighway, back in the day, that's when it was what it was called. This information superhighway is going to rule everything we do. We're going to be shopping online. So I say all that to say that my experience with technology goes way, way back. I mean, I was one of the first people. I sound archaic now. I was one of the first people, along with others on the Hill, to have access to what is now known as email. But we were only communicating with each other on the Hill. So so it's been a part of my life. And Goldman, my God,
I can only imagine.
Goldman Sachs, like way up here with the technology.
Well, most of my technology ends up being through Goldman Sachs and through work. I mean, because I spend most of my time there, and it's mostly market-related stuff, and staying up on the markets and what's going on around the world in news. And we have a number of platforms that we continue to develop, actually. But personally, I have all the accoutrements that we all have, from the phones to the computers to the Blackberries.
Okay, so he's being modest. When I was at Goldman Sachs, they introduced the BlackBerry. Do you remember when the BlackBerries first came on the scene?
I do remember.
And no one else was using them. And when I left Wall Street to go to publishing, it was like taking 20 steps back. And my friends in the corporate communications department knew that I was wedded to my BlackBerry because I did everything on it. I still do on my iPhone now. And they called my new job because they were going to surprise me with a gift with the BlackBerry, because of course when I left Goldman I had to give up my BlackBerry. And the folks at the publishing company had no idea what they were talking about. Like, what are you talking about? A what? And so Goldman Sachs, when it comes to the technology, there was always training. There was always, we need to be a step ahead, cutting edge.
Definitely.
And that was the brilliant thing about being a Goldman Sachs, seriously.
That's so important, especially for our viewers to know. I mean, you've got to do what's necessary to train yourself, to stay on top of things so you don't get left behind. And being at a first-class organization like that makes a difference. Well, we have to talk again about, quickly as we wrap up, about Misty and what's coming up in the future, because there's so many things. She's got a book, she's got a documentary coming out, going to be on Broadway, back at Lincoln Center. Please.
Well, I'll let Gilda talk about all the things, because as you can imagine, Gilda and I speak all the time, and we're sending emails back and forth. I'm wishing Misty good luck when she goes to this thing or that thing. So it's a lot. Well,
let me just ask you quickly. I mean, what's goals wise? Yeah. I mean, because we got to also say that the young lady from the Philippines, Stella Abrera.
Yes.
Stella Abrera.
Right. She was also a principal dancer who was selected.
Yes.
And being on the board was, I mean, I'm sure there was some influence there in terms of this diversity. I mean, this is big. The American Ballet Theater picking 2 women of color to be principal dancers.
Yep.
And also women who were groomed by ABT.
And grew up there.
Right.
No, well, but again, I mean, this is one of those things you have to give, credit to the artistic director, Kevin McKenzie, and because this all ends up being, of course, it's an organizational decision to promote people.
Sure.
But at the core of it is the artistry of the dancers, and as Gilda said, they both grew up at ABT, and as simple as this, they both deserve it.
Yes.
On their own excellence, on their own merit, and I think through it all, through everything, that's the most important thing. They both deserve it, and they both qualified and have exhibited excellence at this level for their career, and they're pioneers, I think, in that. So as board members, you're supportive, and you lend your resources of all kinds. But those kinds of things at the core, they end up coming down to the merit of who's ready and who's got it. And we're both so proud to be on the team with Misty, because she's got it.
No doubt.
And so ahead for her, we have to remember she's now a principal dancer at ABT.
Right.
She's performing and will have the demands at the highest level of ballet. So she's got a ton going on, but it's in some ways just beginning for her, right? At this new level, she's had principal roles, but the responsibilities, the pressure, the demands that come with being a principal ballerina is incredible. So all in all, in terms of next steps, she's really, really focused on making sure that's where where she spends her attention.
No question.
But Gilda's very helpful in managing.
What's coming up, Gilda? Just give us a.
Well, she starts her rehearsals for On the Town, the Broadway production, her first Broadway opportunity. She's only doing 2 weeks though, and it's during ABT's hiatus, and she's going to be doing that August 25th through September 6th.
No stress there.
She's going to be singing and acting for the first time, as well as dancing.
Well, she acts at ABT too.
Well, that's true.
Speaking acting.
Speaking acting.
Right.
And then the documentary is coming, A Ballerina's Tale with Brooklyn's own Nelson George. That's going to be coming October 14th in select theaters in New York, Los Angeles, and other cities.
Wow.
And we're excited. Sundance Selects picked us up for distribution.
Oh my gosh, excellent.
So
We're breaking some news? No, that's great.
And then there's the film based on her life, Life in Motion, New Line Cinema. And it's pretty incredible when I think about all that is to come. And she has 2 books, and we just finished the final portion of the book tour, which it was so funny. When we were on the road in Houston and Detroit the week before, someone asked her, how long have you been on book tour? She said, like 3 years. And I said, Misty, the books just came out last year. And she said, oh my God, it seems like we've been on the road forever. But she really enjoys it, and it's always been very important to me and to her that people get a chance to experience her. They get a chance to talk to her, ask her questions, interact with her in some form or fashion. And it can't be 5-10 minutes each person, because there are a lot of people. But I think that, you know, people really have come to appreciate that. I mean, I remember when the book came out, we had crowds of maybe a couple hundred. Now we're dealing with crowds of 1,000. And it's just so amazing to see how people are connected to her. She's a ballerina. She's not a pop star. She's not an actress, not a reality TV host or a star. She's a ballerina, and she's bringing people to this art form.
Well, that's the most important thing, and I'm going to let you right back in, Val. I just want to say quickly, because we were talking about the fact that it's so important to give you guys exposure, and not that you look for it at all, but this is what makes a difference in somebody's life. They see people that are behind the scenes, because for everybody who's in front, there's a lot of people behind that are actually making things happen. And I know we talked about the fact that it's so beautiful to see two black women supporting each other, raising each other up, having people of color, people importantly making decisions on the board, because Valentino's on several boards at the Guggenheim, Lincoln, Jazz at Lincoln Center, and more importantly, even Prep for Prep and the Boys Club, the work you do with youngsters. I'm sorry.
I was just going to, Gilda, spoke so eloquently about the breadth of Misty's reach and her being available and accessible. And I think one important point I think that has to be made is, because obviously the black community is so inspired and happy for Misty, but it's really important to know that Misty is an inspiration for everyone, of all walks of life, of all races, of all professions, and I think the reason why her story is resonating so widely and so diversely is because it's an inspiration for everyone. It's just, what can one do when they focus, have a passion, give it their all, have that kind of discipline, rigor, pursuit of excellence that she exhibits, and also the ability to relate and to tell one story, to be, there's a real, just a humanity about Misty, I think, when you hear her speak, and I think she's interested in doing that. And so I think it's an important message. As much as the black community is so happy for her and inspired for her, there are tons of people of all races, really, who are incredibly supportive, backing her, coming to performances, rooting her on, and that's been a real joy for us. I mean, again, all of what any diversity program is, or the one we have at ABT called Project Plie, the whole ambition is just to make all pursuits open for all people who want to pursue them, and to allow access, and to just send the message that everything is yours if you want it, and make it a reality that it can be accessible, and that people can find the resources if they don't have the resources. And I think that's what Misty's story is. She's just a story of how someone who probably had less access than those who are normally within ballet, when given that chance, had the capacity and could show her potential. And I think that's got to inspire, because there's an economic message in there, there's an ethnic message, there's a cultural message, there's a racial message, there's really a human message in that. And I think that's why she's been so inspiring to people. And that's just an important, because I have to say, it's really refreshing when we go to it has been nice to see a more diverse audience at the performances. But I have to say, it's also just nice to see non-blacks so invigorated, so happy for what the messaging of what Misty's doing for them and for our country and for the world. It is.
Well, I think that's the most beautiful part of it, because she has to have a great team in order for her. I know you talked about her being accessible and being available to the fans. That's really critical, and you guys have been absolutely fabulous with it. I'm gonna wrap this with a couple of quick things, because I just want to know first, any guilty pleasures TV wise? I mean, outside of watching our show.
Okay. I'm going to admit that I just completely gouged on Power.
Oh, fabulous! Sure.
And this weekend, I've heard about it so much, because I watch Empire.
Right.
But I have to say, I completely dove in. Yes, Power.
Go all in. It's all good. Valentino, I know you can't admit anything.
No, I can't. any martial arts films. I'm like, Bruce Lee, and anything Bruce Lee I love. I can watch Bruce Lee, any times a day. Martial arts films would be,
fabulous. And what are you eating when you're enjoying these things? Favorite food?
Italian food is one of my favorite foods.
Okay.
I can't really think of anything that I so enjoy Chicken?
Okay. That's a favorite. It's all good. Oh, it's fabulous. Well, look, we could do this for a while.
May
We're
I
gonna
just say one
please,
thing,
no,
since
yeah.
we're in Brooklyn?
Please.
I learned
Yes.
today that
Uh-huh.
a dear, dear journalist, Brooke Stevenson, who lives in Brooklyn, or lived in Brooklyn, passed.
Oh, my
And I
gosh.
just wanted to pay tribute to
Yeah.
him. He was a literary gem and had just finished his novel, and I just want to pay tribute to him.
No, thank you.
He's a good
Really.
guy.
Yeah. And needless to say, we'd love to get some information about him and put it up on our website. We're going to have that on What's the 411 TV. Please look for that. Friend us on Facebook. Let us know how you're thinking, and send us in some questions or comments about the interview. We'd love to. And the Industry Insider is one thing, but we're definitely going to have you back individually to explore more into what you guys are doing. I can't, Gilda Squire, Valentino Carlotti, we
Thank
can't
you
thank
for
you
having
guys
us
enough.
both.
Yeah.